Hey, relax. The media keep telling us they are mostly peaceful protesters, right? And these two were mostly peaceful protesters.
Oh, really?
Really? That's fine.
I don't speak to people like that.
Really? You like soaking test, right? You like Cheetos. You want to eat that little sausage?
Literally walking down the sidewalk.
Don't get me on there.
He's a Donald Trump supporter. He supports racism.
Do you even know when
I'm not saying.
For the record, we were walking down the street minding our own business, and you just physically.
Look up the crime bill. All right.
You get away from me. You get away from me.
Oh, I got you on film. Do something to her.
Yeah, do something to her. You.
A Republican senator and his wife attend an RNC convention. A Republican senator and his wife leave the RNC convention, or attempt to. But remember, these are mostly peaceful protesters.
Say her name. Say her name. Say her name. Say her name.
Y'all can take pictures and all that, but y'all gotta go to the room, please. Thank you.
Move back. Move back. You move the back. Move back. Move back.
What's up, bro?
I got you.
Now, this sheriff from Polk County, Florida, offers some sage advice to any would-be violent protesters who might want to protest in his county.
But we have received information in social media that some of the criminals were going to take their criminal conduct into the neighborhoods. I would tell them, if you value your life, you probably shouldn't do that in Polk County, because the people of Polk County like guns. They have guns. I encourage them to own guns, and they're going to be in their homes tonight with their guns loaded. And if you try to break into their homes to steal, to set fires, I'm highly recommending they blow you back out of the house with their guns.
There is a distinction between peaceful protesters and thugs, you know.
I am one of those individuals who walked in back doors because the law said I had to. I'm one of those individuals who rode on the back of the bus on the back seats that were not cushioned because the law said I had to. I went to the water and drank colored water because the law said I had to. I went to a school where everybody looked like me and the country was divided and segregated because the law said that I had to. So all of these things we continue to refer to are the things that me and my generation lived. We saw it for ourselves. We're not reading it in the history books, but we lived it. I went with my father when he and our neighbor got one of those I am a man signs and went downtown Memphis and watched him stand there proudly with Dr. King and other men and women, black and white, who had enough courage to stand up against what was wrong. And the way they did it, they had on their suits, their shirts, their ties, hats, and if it was cold, their overcoats. They locked arms and they marched peacefully. And Dr. King stood for that which was peaceful. because the world took a look at what was happening in Memphis, in Chicago, in Detroit, in Washington, D.C., and all over this country. We changed the entire world. And we changed it because those men and women had enough guts, integrity, enough citizenship and love of country, because my father was a Korean War era soldier, as many of those other men and women were. They didn't beg for anything. They didn't beg for citizenship. They demanded it, because they were American citizens who paid taxes, who raised children, who paid house notes and rent, and did everything they were supposed to do so that they could demand from this country and its Constitution those things that they were supposed to have. How did they do it? They did it by standing like men and women of integrity and class and common sense and values. When the riots started and folks started burning stuff down, that's when my father took my arm and we left. We left because that was not what we were there for. That was not what Dr. King was there for. That was not what others who are famous in the civil rights days were there for. This was not peaceful. It was not part of our movement, and it only hurt everything.
And President Donald J. Trump is accused of inciting violence?
Do you seriously wonder, Mr. President, why this is the first time in decades that America has seen this level of violence? It's you who have created the hate and the division. It's you who have not found a way to say the names of black people killed by police officers, even as people in law enforcement have. And it's you who claimed that white supremacists are good people.
Sigh. Once again, no, Trump did not say about Charlottesville there were very fine people on both sides. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you CNN hosts Messrs. Jake Tapper and Michael Schmerkanish.
Let's play some of the sound of President Trump back in 2017, saying he had said today that he answered the question perfectly. Let's take a listen.
Neo-Nazis started this. They showed up in Charlottesville to protest.
Excuse me, they didn't put themselves down as neo-Nazis. And you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Now, elsewhere in those remarks, the president did condemn neo-Nazis and white supremacists. So he's not saying that the neo-Nazis and white supremacists are very fine people, but he is saying people protesting alongside those neo-Nazis and white supremacists are very fine people.
Within the last 10 days, I know that I made reference to those words from the president, and I had a phone caller who called and said, that is not what the president said. Now, having invested the time to go back and zapruder the tape, I think the caller's right, and I think you're right. I think it's true. He'd have done himself a favor if he had verbalized it the way you have with the words monument debate.
Now, Mayor Ted Wheeler said about Donald Trump, quote, "It is you who has created the hatred and division," end of quote. Let's go to the videotape, shall we?
And so, let's stay the course. Let's make sure we show up wherever we have to show up. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
When they go low, we kick them.
How do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck?
The biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized to the right.
I thought he should have punched him in the face. I said, even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
punch some people in the face.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
Look as his character is stabbed to death.
Where is John Wilkes Booth when you need him?
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
A Missouri state senator is under investigation by the Secret Service after saying she hopes President Trump is assassinated.
I will go and take Trump out tonight. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
And sadly, the domestic enemies to our voting system and our honoring our Constitution are right at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not.
If you think we're rallying now, you ain't seen nothing yet.
I got to tell you, this was neither peaceful nor respectful.
Get him. You better not run. Oh! Dang!
That's just sick. Can we end on a somewhat lighter note? Put this under the heading of sometimes a little brother just needs a hug. Hashtag priceless. Now, if this were California, they'd have the kid arrested for serially violating social distancing protocol while not wearing a mask, and they put an added charge for hate crime for targeting white folks. I'm Larry Elder, and we've got a country to save. I'll see you next time.